So this week we got some news about the famous Tom Bombadil, Johnny, and I'm not going to go overboard on information that was released by Variety magazine because I'm sure everyone has seen it now at this stage. So if anyone doesn't know, yes, the Rings of Power is going to have Tom Bombadil. Who is that character? You can go and check it out in our podcast. There's an episode called Tom Bombadil and you'll hear all about him there. But the main thing to note is that he's going to be played by the actor Rory Kinnear, I believe is how it's pronounced. And you may know him from James Bond. He was one of M's chief of staff. And what I immediately picked him up from was Black Mirror. Do you know the very first episode of Black Mirror where he's the guy with the pig? So not very Tom Bombadil-like there, but but yeah, let's get into it.
Going to start this by saying Tom Bombadillo.
Yes, we're going. It's the first time we're going to see Tom Bombadil in live action, or actually in any adaptation. Kind of. I know that he was omitted from the BBC radio edition, or what's that called?
The radio special.
The radio special. Yeah, so he's not in that, but I think they actually created a whole radio special just based on the scenes that Tom Bombadil is in the Fellowship and some other things. But
and Dave and I just last night watched the 1978 Lord of the Rings cartoon, rotoscoping weird thing.
The Ralph Bakshi, yeah.
The Ralph Bakshi movie. For the first time we watched that, and again, no feature of old Tommy B.
No.
So,
yeah, but this is the first time we get to see him. There's been mixed response on Twitter and online in general. And I don't know, some people say, oh my God, he looks too young, or oh, he doesn't look happy. But what do you think anyways, Johnny? Just basic look of him, the way he's dressed, everything. Does he scream Tom Bombadil?
Yeah, well, I think probably one of the biggest complaints, and something that I'm not really sure why they did, is that, first of all, we don't get any shots from him acting or anything like that. All the shots are just promotional shots. He's on set and the actors are there. They're just kind of like almost this kind of like, staring down the barrel kind of these shots, and he looks very serious. And that's the main kind of argument I think for most people, that he doesn't look like his jolly Tom singing with a big smile and big rosy cheeks. And so it probably might have been a good idea to at least get a couple of shots of him with a big jolly smile on his face. But maybe this, and again, not maybe, I'm sure this is purposefully done to kind of create a little bit of online kind of, oh, I don't know, I don't like it. But in terms of his costume, I like it. I think he looks really good. I mean, it would always be very difficult to try and bring someone to life who's supposed to have these really bright colors and put him into this real world where, especially, we know that in season 2, they've mentioned it loads of times that this is going to be like darker and grittier. And so someone with like a bright blue coat and like yellow boots, I think if they were like just, cartoonish yellow, which is what we've only seen of Tom Bombadil, like kind of these kind of cartoon illustrations, that would just be completely impossible to do. So I think the fact that we saw a couple of shots of him first inside this house and his boots kind of looked like a dark brown, and then you saw shots of him outdoors and they looked like there's more of a kind of a yellow hue to these boots, and I was like, okay, yeah, I can get behind that. And then also was like, someone online was like, yeah, but he doesn't have a big long blue feather. And then I saw another person like had zoomed in on the hat, and the feather is there. It's just, it's not sticking up. It's like it had fallen over. So I think they did kind of basically try to cover all bases, and they got everything. So I like the look of him. And again, I really like his beard. Looks great. The actor, he looks great. The only thing is just we don't get to see this big, stupid, jolly smile.
Yeah. I mean, you mentioned that it's 4 promotional shots that look like they're all taken from one scene. And I assume in the scene he's going to be quite stern. And also the books do describe, the book describes Tom as obviously very jolly all the time, but he is definitely sad, and he's stern, and
serious.
He's actually harrowing a lot of the time when he's, warning the hobbits about the Barrow Downs and the Barrow Whites, and so he's not always jolly Tom, but he does.
He has his moments of seriousness and like kind of warning, and I don't know,
like so just the fact that we're just seeing still images, they do mention in the article, I don't have quotes here, but they do mention that he is completely different, wildly different to every other character, and he is his own enigmatic state almost, and he is jolly and he's singing, and I feel like that they're definitely not going to admit that at all. So I think it's fine. And when you look at his costume, I think the costume department, they couldn't have had an easier thing to do. It's like, well, this character sings about what he wears. So
He has songs about what he's wearing.
So blue
if they
jacket.
mess that up, then you're like, well, I really can't trust these guys.
And for some reason, we'll get into the location now in a second, but just as you were describing it, how things were a bit darker, I didn't have this written down, but I just thought, wouldn't it be cool if we see him in this place, Rhun, but if we do get to see him in the Old Forest or where he's from, maybe things are a little bit more different there. Like maybe it's a lot more brighter and cartoonish, and
maybe
then
his coat glows a bit more.
Oh yeah, maybe things like that. And do you know, I've seen it. I can't think of a movie example now, but like sometimes when someone leaves like the realm of their own environment, that their clothes and their appearance, it actually almost adjusts to the surroundings around them. And it's kind of like it's a movie choice or a television choice. But I don't know, maybe that might happen, it might not. Either way, I don't have a problem with the blue not being blue enough or the yellow not being yellow enough. It needs to feel real. I think the main thing is they need to just not nail the character. They just need to have him be a wildly crazy character to everyone else.
Yeah, but the most difficult thing is going to be the fit of how they can make him almost true to book, but then also fit in with the world around him. Not fit in that he kind of blends in, because obviously we know that he just stands out and he's completely weird. Yeah. But just how it's not completely out of place, and you don't want to just like kind of turn it off and be like, this is just
especially for
mad.
Promotional pictures. Like they're not gonna, like, let's say they were to put a cartoon character in, they're not going to do that because everyone's going to be like, what the hell is
and
going
people
on?
who like, a lot of Lord of the Rings fans will only have watched the movies and don't have any idea who Tom Bombadil is. So if they just see a promotional image of season 2 of The Rings of Power and suddenly it's this kind of cartoonish looking guy, they're like, well, I'm definitely not tuning in for this. So
well, one thing I wanted to bring up as well is the actor Rory Kinnear said, I'll just quote here, but I also wanted to choose an accent that felt old. That was British, but felt like the oldest part of Britain. He's talking about a Cornish accent here, which you and I
could be like South London in it.
Yeah, well, there has been a lot of debate about this online, and to be fair, I'm not going to get into it too much because we're not from Britain, we're not from England. I don't really understand the differences between like a Cornish accent, and a lot of people are saying it should be kind of like an old Oxford or Oxfordshire accent. Is that a thing?
Yeah, but I think like a Cornish accent would be like West Country.
But like, I think the idea
Ian
is that
Holloway.
you would often see in movies like someone that's very old or like using really old English, it would be in a Cornish accent and it's supposed to be like otherworldly. He was kind of saying that Tom is like one of the oldest things in Middle Earth, so he wanted to use one of the oldest known type accents in Britain, which I appreciate. Now I know there's discourse online, but like that is such a minutia of detail that I'm actually glad that they went into putting a little bit of effort into deciding what kind of accent Tom will have. So I think that's interesting, and we'll see what that's like, and I'm glad he is going to sound different to all the other characters. But the big thing I think a lot of people are talking about is location. Yes. Because we clearly see that Tom is not in the Old Forest, which is where he only is really in the book. Yeah. There might be some reference how he might have left at some point. We don't know what the borders of his realm were really, like, they could have changed over time as well, but he's clearly in Rhun, and they talk about that in this article. They say he's in Rhun, he's meeting the stranger. Why is he there? Was he not just bound to the land that he lives in? And why would he leave the Old Forest? Why? Like, what's he doing in Rhun, in your opinion?
Well, I haven't really given it much thought, but it is going to be interesting to see what they do and how they go about it, because, from the books, I don't know if it lays it out specifically at any point, but we kind of get the idea that he doesn't really have, not that he doesn't have the ability, but he just kind of never seems to really leave his own kind of area. He just stays in the Old Forest. And he also talks about how in the Old Forest, he is the master. And, he masters the trees and the waters and the rivers and everything he masters. And he talks about other lands abroad, and he says like, oh, Tom is not the master there. Yeah. So like, he kind of, it's like, he doesn't go there because he's not the master, and he doesn't really have any interest. And it's like, maybe he could go there and he could master some things out there, but it's just like, he's like, why would I bother? I have my little land here. So I don't know. I can't remember. Maybe somebody else can enlighten us as to whether or not he's actually in any place that says that he is bound to his own land. I don't think so. So I think it would be possible and maybe plausible for him to maybe go out to Rhun. Like, we know that he goes off on little escapades looking for water lilies and stuff and things to bring back to Goldberry.
But I don't think you're going to get any water lilies out in the deserts of Rhun, no.
I don't think so. I don't think that's what else is going to... So anyway, also for our listeners to note, Rhun is way out in the east, is where the Easterlings are from. And if you want to try and visualize it, it's kind of like... Tolkien kind of looked at the map of, if you were from Britain and you're looking at a map and that's kind of in the center point, way out east is going to be kind of like the Middle East, I suppose. Yeah. And it's going to be very, deserty. There's lots of sand. It's not green. It's not lush. So that's where he's going to be meeting with the stranger, this Istari, one of the wizards. We don't know which one quite yet.
Yeah, and it is interesting, the fact that he's all the way out there, because a lot of people are also worried, and I would would support this as well. They'd be worried that he becomes an important character, or he has
affects the plot. Yeah.
Well, he can affect the plot. Like, obviously, he affected the plot in the Fellowship of the Ring. Like, he intervenes with the hobbits, and he comes and rescues them
twice.
Twice. So, like, he does intervene, but like, I don't want him to show up and be like, okay, stranger, I'm going to show you the way to this. He doesn't care about anything. He doesn't care about the stranger. I hope the stranger just happens upon him, and I just hope he gives him a little bit of some words of wisdom, and then he's on his way. He doesn't. He shouldn't care about anything that's going on.
Yeah, he generally wants, what we would consider good and evil. He would fall into the good category because and he loves the earth, and he loves, as we said, the forest and the rivers and those kind of things. He's basically kind of like nature personified. A lot of people would say that that's, as we know, Tolkien doesn't like allegory, but if you were to think of what does Tom represent, you could nearly say, okay, he's a humanization of nature and of the forest and things like that. But so in that sense, you could say that Tom does, if he's looking out for anything, he is looking out for nature, he's looking out for the goodness. And obviously, if you look at orcs and evil, they're like trying to kill and destroy nature. So he would have a reason to, like, he has a reason in the books to help the hobbits and like to save them from the Barrow Downs and to save them from the what's the name of the tree? Old Man Willow.
Old Man Willow, yeah.
So he saves them from those things. And again, he doesn't have a reason to or a need to, but he does step in and intervene. And so he can do those types of things. We know that he shouldn't affect the plot in a giant way. But you could also argue that he massively affects the plot in Lord of the Rings, because if he hadn't intervened, well, there would have been no story, because, the hobbits would have all been killed.
No, absolutely. He can affect the plot, but I think listeners should try and get used to, or well, hopefully get used to the fact that this isn't the introduction of a new character that's going to come in and be a big new member of the show. Like, I feel like max 2 episodes, he comes in, he's gone,
pops up a little bit here and there, and then definitely stick it to just this season as well. If he pops up in like little bits and pieces of different episodes, even if it's further down the road, when I say further down the road, I mean in season 2, maybe in episode 5 or 6, and if there's like another little 5-minute scene of just him doing something, I won't be like, this is terrible. But if we
get to see him returning to Goldberry or something.
Yeah, exactly. Or if we get like a flashback of like the wizard kind of going, oh, I remember this thing that he said that didn't make much sense in the moment, but now it makes sense with my whatever journey I'm on. Little things like that, that's fine. But I agree with you completely, and that's a very important point, that we shouldn't think, oh, this is the introduction of a new lead character.
Yeah, and also for people that don't understand Tom Bombadil, he is a complete enigmatic character. Nobody really knows what he is, where he comes from, how old he is. Like, he's older than time, really, but like, people have wondered, is he an Istari? Is he a Maiar? All these kind of things. But the showrunners...
Is he a Iluvatar?
Yes. A lot. The showrunners, initially some reports came out that he was going to be Sauron and Goldberry was going to be Ungoliant, Ungoldberryant. And like, that freaked out a lot of people. But I think the showrunners mentioning in this article that they're not going to put a reason or an answer to, who he is. They're not going to give him a backstory.
Thank God.
Which is brilliant, because no matter what they do, it would be seriously underwhelming. Like,
Yeah.
you know, if it is any of the crazy theories that people suspect, then it'd be underwhelming, or it'd be too far out there.
And
I
I would hate to have anyone online just being like, now I have a definitive answer, and that's the end of this story, and for it to just be something that some creators of a TV show come up with. I mean, maybe not come up with, maybe they take what is the most plausible theory out there and they go with that. I still don't want it to be that way, because even Tolkien mentioned numerous times that he's an enigma, and he's supposed to be an enigma. And he's like basically saying, in the real world, there are enigmas out there that we just don't have answers for and we can't solve. And so the reason that we have this enigma that exists in the Lord of the Rings world, it even makes it more realistic.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And yeah, it seems like the showrunners are going with that. They're not going to give him a backstory. So happy days from us. So any other questions I have would be that I would put to you. Do you think that he'll speak in verse? We hear Tom singing in the book all the time.
Oh, yeah.
And he's always rhyming. But do you think that will translate to the screen?
Oh,
how do you think it's going to work?
I'm sure he'll have to. He'll have to sing, and I just have some sort of different rhyming schemes and rhyming patterns for just his general like babbling, because he does a lot of just like babbling, and hopefully, you know, if he's having a dialogue with someone and then he's like, oh, I need to go and just wash some plates, he'll just turn around and just start babbling and singing to himself while he's doing some stuff.
Yeah.
You know, but he'll probably also have moments where he's like, you know, having serious dialogue and like giving advice or whatever. And
I still hope there's a bit of rhythm in that as well.
Yeah,
though.
maybe we'll see. And again, because the actor, as you read out there before, he said like obviously he's given a lot of thought to the accent that he wants. When you're looking at someone's accent, it's not only the accent, it's also the intonation, it's the melody of their speech, it's the rhythm, it's different things like that. And I remember before season 1 came out, the directors and the show writers, they spoke about this as well, about how the melody, and not just the melody but the speed and the intonation of different peoples would be different. So for example, the elves would speak with a different pace and
much
different
slower
rhythm than other beings.
Absolutely.
Like
They have all the time in the world. They speak slower, they use longer words, more drawn out.
And we got to see that as well in Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings. We saw the elves just speaking so slowly, and Galadriel's there chatting. You're like, get on with it, Galadriel. I'm like almost trying to put her on like double speed.
Yeah.
I'm so used to listening to all my like media on double speed now, but when you get to Galadriel and Lothlorien, you're like, okay, I guess I just have to chill and wait for her to get through these sentences. But hopefully they will, like both showrunners and the actor will have considered these types of things, and have, even when he's given his little kind of, okay, here's my important speech that I need to give to you, it's going to have some sort of rhythm.
It'll have a bounce to it.
Yeah, hopefully.
I hope so.
Yeah.
Now, what do you think is going on? Like, we see in the promotional content that he's with the stranger. Some people are speculating online, will he name the stranger? They're still calling the stranger even after everyone was like, oh god, it's Gandalf, but it's still called the stranger in terms of, you know, the Variety article. Do you think he will be given a name?
He must be given a name at some point. Like,
but do you think that's what Tom Bombadil's role is to do?
No, I hope not. I don't know. I don't really have any thought on that. Like,
this is my thought. I had a very strong thought on this. Like, I thought about this before I saw any breakdowns or anything, but I was just thinking, Tom and the stranger, everyone's talking about the stranger being Gandalf or a blue wizard, but like, Tom has an abundance of blue coats. Wouldn't it not be amazing for the stranger to show up in one of Tom's, you know, he's got a little holiday home in Rhun for some reason, and it's
like a Homer Simpson kind of wardrobe where he opens the wardrobe, it's just
all blue. Yellow boots and all blue jackets, and the stranger comes in, he gives him some water, he tells him about what he's really looking for. We actually see in this promotional content, Tom Bombadil has the celestial, what are they called, the like stars in the background. What is he? What are they called? The star signs that stranger's looking for. He's got the
signs of the zodiac.
Yeah, they're all like written on Tom's wall. Like, you can zoom in and see that. I feel like Tom's gonna kind of give him a little explanation of what he's doing, what he's looking for, and he's gonna wrap him in a big blue coat, because he's like,
send him off.
It'll be very, very dangerous out there, young stranger, or whatever. He'll put on a hat on his head, because he's got clearly a wizardy looking hat, Tom does, and and he'll say,
Maybe-
go out and find your friend. I've seen another one of these blue wizards passing here, or something like that. Maybe he gave another coat to another wizard.
Yeah.
And now there's 2 wizards with blue coats.
That's you never know. Like,
and
that-
he'll call
that
him
could be class.
Marenitar, or what's the
Yeah,
other one?
yeah.
Palando
Palando.
Marenitar.
Yeah. Also, we saw the only small little clip of the stranger that we saw in the actual trailer for the Rings of Power Season 2 was when he was out. We saw again, he was in Rhun clearly, and he was doing another kind of wizard blast.
Yeah.
And we got to see him this time though. However, remember we spoke of this in our trailer breakdown. Instead of him just like smacking the ground with his hand and nearly destroying his hand, he was actually using a piece of a stick as like a conduit and as a staff or something. I wonder if Tom has something to do with that to kind of like help him with the use of magic, because Tom is a magical creature and he kind of could go like, look, instead of doing that, here, use this. This is called a staff, and then maybe you might help him. Like,
well, Tom
build
has a walking stick in these
Yeah.
images, and we did get to see the stranger at the end of season 1 using a staff for the first time. He takes the staff of the 3 mystics, and he does do a whole wizard blast. But I think the staff disappears and crumbles,
and he doesn't use that in. We didn't see that in the trailer. For the
No,
next
but-
season. We
but
saw just a random,
True.
curvy stick that he's obviously picked up.
But
on
he
his
but he
travels.
does have the knowledge of like how he can use a staff as a conduit for his magic and to make it more powerful. But I do think this bodes well for my theory of the of the blue wizard, of the stranger being a blue wizard, and especially the fact that he's in Rhun. I just think I think Tom Bombadil will be the one to actually go, oh, another one of you passed by here not so long ago. I also gave him a jacket. Look out for someone with my jacket. I just think,
you know what, I
think it could work.
The reason that he's in Rhun is the only thing that's still giving me a little bit of hope that it could be a blue wizard, because I would like it to be a blue wizard and for us to be able to see that played out and to explore that a little bit more rather than just kind of going, this is Gandalf's origin story. But like a huge part of me is just saying, okay, we know that after all the Lord of the Rings ended, Gandalf was like, before he left Middle Earth, he was like, I'm going to go hang out with Tom for about 2 years and just have a big chat, because we're really good friends. And this could be, okay, Gandalf arrives at Middle Earth and Tom is the one to kind of help him out with the beginning of his magic journey. And Tom kind of is almost like his guide and his teacher. And then Gandalf goes off, does his whole thing. And then, you know, it comes full circle and he comes back and like says thanks to Tom again. So I think it could be like, this is the origin of their friendship as well. And I think when season 1 was finishing, I was really against this being Gandalf. But now I've kind of just mellowed out. And if this does turn out to be Gandalf, I'm not going to be so kind of like, this is a disaster. I'll just be like, all right, okay, that's just the way they went with it.
Yeah, well, look, I'm not strongly opinionated on anything that the show does at this point, because it's like a lot of it is going to be completely different to the source material.
Sure.
But I still think there is enough ground for... I think the showrunners have given us a lot of red herrings before, and I think that whole, you know, always follow your nose thing... I think a lot of people were like, that is guaranteed Gandalf now. And I saw Corey Olsen, the Tolkien professor, talking about this, and he said that wizard saying that line is just, it's only showing that he's a wizard to fans. It kind of gives you the same note that Nori would be Frodo just from that scene, but that's obviously not the case. Nori's Nori. This is just a wizard. Maybe that's the thing all wizards kind of say. It's a tip of the hat kind of thing, but it makes you think. But at the same time,
riddles.
Nobody's going to be like, what the hell? Why would he say this line again? It's just I actually remember feeling like this is guaranteed that it's going to be Gandalf at the end of season 1. But I think even just with the promotional content we've gotten so far, the trailer, and now the showrunner still referring to him as the stranger, I don't know. The fire of hope has arisen in my soul again.
we saw in season 1 that the showrunners definitely like their little mystery boxes and things like that. So if they still had planned to reveal this character as Gandalf, they definitely wouldn't just do it without some big reveal that was supposed to be like overwhelming and on the screen. But like, and everyone I'm sure would just be like, yeah, we knew, or you know, that kind of thing.
But I think the fact now that they've given this big hint, everyone's going to expect him to be the stranger.
Oh, and so from their perspective, they're kind of going, oh, we're going to trick everyone. We're going to pull the wool over their eyes. Maybe.
But then a lot of people could be disappointed, like casual fans will be like, oh, he's not Gandalf. He's just another blue wizard guy.
Yeah, they would.
By the way, I mentioned earlier that maybe he'll name him as Palando or Marenitar, but I actually think both those names are only in Unfinished Tales. So
they might not be able to have the
unless
rights,
they get but I don't think those are important. I think if they were just to call him a blue wizard, that would be enough for me anyways. One other thing as well, when you mentioned about Tom having, complete control over the borders of his own land, I really think as well it's suggested that Tom actually, similar to Galadriel and Lothlorien, like he has probably even more power over his land than Galadriel has over Lothlorien, even though she's using her ring of power, Nenya, to to create this almost like Valinor type land that she's created. But anyways, that's besides the point. Moving on to another question for you here. Bear McCreary is obviously back, and surely this is going to be something very fun for him to do with Tom Bombadil. Like, what kind of...
Good old Crair Mabeery.
I like to Crair Mabeery every weekend. Yeah.
It's so exciting. I just love Bear McCreary.
Yeah. And what do you think the music's going to be like for Tom? This is going to be...
Yeah, it's definitely good. Like, he's going to have his work cut out for him there with that. Because, I mean... Oh my God, I can't even imagine being like working in what Bear McCreary does, and then they're kind of going, right, Bear, we're going to need you to write a little, a music soundscape for Tom Bombadil. He's just like, oh my God, it's got to be so wacky and out there, but still fitting. And, so it's definitely, I've no idea. It's definitely, it's going to have to be like bouncy and jolly, and I'm imagining lots of like tubas and trombones and stuff like that.
And whimsical and fun.
Yeah.
Yeah,
you're going to need the whimsical strings. But I reckon there's going to be a lot of like, just, as I said, like bass and like brass instruments as well.
I assume he's also going to have to write any lyrics, or not lyrics, but like any of Tom's poems or songs that he sings. He's going to have to create the melody for a lot of those.
Surely there will be melodies that are created.
So that's going to be tough, because obviously, he did that a couple of times in season 1 as well for, it was a Poppy song, when they were walking through.
Yeah, lovely song. And just the ring song.
Yeah, that was class.
Yeah, it was class.
So this is definitely something to look forward to, is Bear McCreary's take on the character. Also, one of the final questions I have for here is, we mentioned her briefly, but Goldberry. Are we going to see Goldberry at all, do you reckon?
The fact that we saw that he's in Rhun really doesn't bode well for us getting to see Goldberry, because Goldberry is always awaiting. Yeah. She's always just back home chilling, like, preparing dinner or, doing different things like that. And he's always like, I got to get back to Goldberry. She's waiting for me. And all this kind of stuff. So if we had seen him in his own natural home and in the old forest, I'd say, there would be a good chance we get to see her. But no, I don't expect to see her.
I don't know. Like, it could be done in a very artistic way. Like, maybe he talks about her. Maybe we see the back of her head. I don't know. Will they have like an actress for this? Because it must be a whole other thing to go, oh my God, like, how do we cast Tom? And now how do we cast Goldberry?
Can you pretend to be the daughter of the river?
Yeah. So I don't really know, but like, I'd imagine if we don't get to see her, there'll be some references made, or he'll say something the missus will be awaiting, or or even in a song, like he'll probably sing a song about Goldberry, similar to like Aragorn singing about Beren and Luthien, and maybe the stranger is, oh, who's that? And he'd be like, oh, that's the old ball and chain.
Yeah, I don't know. Again, I haven't put too much thought into it, but my initial thought would be that no, I doubt we'll get to see Goldberry at all, because I don't think that they're going the two of them away on their little vacation to Rhun. I believe he's been brought to Rhun for this quest that he, like, maybe he just has this feeling something's uneasy. I need to go out here and sort something out, and there's something's upsetting the balance, that kind of thing. I feel like Tom would just be like, I feel like I need to go there, and that's what he'll do, and he'll be like, look, Goldberry, I'll be back in the afternoon. I'm just going to pop over to Rhun for a while. Yeah. And he'll just magically bounce his way over there.
Yeah, it's very interesting to think what they're going to do with the character, and how important he is to the plot. I think it's quite interesting that they actually released a teaser trailer, and then obviously a behind the scenes trailer on the same day, and then what was it, like a week or 2 weeks later they have Tom Bombadil. And I thought that could have been something that they kept secret for the show. The fact that they're showing some imagery bodes well. It kind of makes you think that he's going to be a more important character. He didn't feature in the trailer, obviously, but he will be in the show a lot because, or maybe they just wanted to get it out there, so we're not going to shock anyone. But at the same time, I think that would have been a really cool surprise. Do you know?
Yeah, you mean just keep it hidden completely under wraps until he actually just
keep it safe.
Keep it safe until he's actually on screen.
Yeah.
But again, they're trying to get eyeballs on the series.
Yeah, so I think it could have been a marketing ploy as well. Like maybe, hopefully, he doesn't have too much of an impact, but it'll be enough for the people that hated season 1 to at least go, oh god, I hate that decision to have Tom. But I feel like check it out.
I feel like so many people that maybe had written off season 1 are just. It's gonna like pique their interest, and they're gonna be like, okay, I have to see what they do.
You have to see Tom. Like you have to see, I'm so curious about those scenes. I feel like they're just gonna be wild. Hearing him singing, hearing Bear McCreary's theme, it's gonna be cool. But like, I think in general, all in all, the showrunners talked in this Variety article, and they seemed to have a decent understanding and respect for the character of Tom Bombadil. So it's good. If you haven't had a chance, guys, please go give it a read. Now,
I did feel a little bit. Again, I don't like saying this because I had the same thing with season 1. But like when you read some of the articles and you hear what the two main showrunners are speaking about, you're kind of going, I feel safe with them because I feel like they're just really protective of the source material, and I feel like they really want to bring Tolkien's vision to life, and they don't want to kind of go completely off.
Well, we obviously know that's not the case.
We know that's not the case because of season 1 they've changed loads of stuff.
But I think with Tom, just the character, the fact that they're not going to give him an origin story, he's obviously, like, the only shots we've seen of him are outside the only place we've ever met Tom. So like it already doesn't make sense.
They've already changed it.
Yeah, they've already changed it, but I hope that his core character remains the same. One thing that they mentioned in the article as well, they said something about the forest that he lives in is called the Withy Windle, which is incorrect as well. Like, that's the name of the river that runs through the old forest, which obviously Tom would have control of as well. But look, it's only a little slip up. I think the main things they got right. Actually, I mentioned it earlier as well about the appearance of Rory Kinnear. Some people, I put it up on Twitter, and some people are like, oh, well, he's like 16, or he looks like a child, even though the actor is older. But like, I get what some people are saying. He looks like he could be a child in costume because he's got a very young face. I
don't think he's got a young face.
Well,
I think he looks perfect.
I think he looks good, yeah, and it didn't arise as a problem. But I just saw some people trying to really pick out flaws, and I interestingly heard Corey Olsen talking about this as well. And he was just saying, like, yeah, why isn't he 16 with a beard? Like, what's he in your mind?
Yeah.
Is he 50? Is he 80? Like, he is a timeless character. He has no age.
Yeah.
Like, what age he chooses to form his appearance in Middle Earth is all up to your opinion.
It's like the Wizards. We know that they decided to take on the image of old
wise men
because basically that's, from our perception as humans or in Middle Earth as like men and elves, they would look at older men with long beards as just being wise, and they would accept advice from these kind of people. Whereas if they decided to take on the form of like little children, then maybe nobody would listen to them. So it's like, it's completely, but they had the complete power to decide what appearance they wanted to take. So yeah, Tom's not bound by, he doesn't age like the way that normal people do. So there's no reason that he should look a particular way. We do know that he has a long beard. So I do think it would just be weird if you saw someone that was like, 15, 16 with a big long beard. So I think,
but like some people were like, well, why is he so young face looking? I've seen lots of it, but the Tolkien
but the actor's probably in his 40s.
Maybe nearly 50. He does have a young face, but the thing is,
like, for maybe 50, he might look that he's in his late 30s or something. But like, he looks like the beard doesn't look out of place on him. I don't think.
No.
I think like he looks like he could grow a big beard if he wanted to.
But I think that the thing that Corey was trying to point out is the fact that it's an adaptation. He just didn't understand, why is there rage online? It's like, this is how Tom should look in my mind. I've read him and I'm picturing a 50, 60-year-old man with a beard, maybe full of wrinkles, maybe like some grays in his beard. Like, but people are like, why does he look this way? But like, this is the first time he's being portrayed on screen. There's obviously plenty of artwork and stuff, but
Yeah.
you know, it's just completely what you imagine the character to be.
Well, it's
And
anything like, as in, I'm like, loads of people hated the image of Elrond when
Oh, yeah.
when Hugo Weaving was cast. So
and obviously Frodo as well. When
yeah, well, of course, yeah, and then like Frodo, who's like 18 years old, but he's supposed to be playing a 50-year-old hobbit. Like, so there's loads of things like that you can complain about, but I think it's almost impossible to, it's always impossible to please fans
Yeah.
of books who've read something. They've taken the words from the pages and they've imagined this character's face and everything about them in their mind for a long time. Then also there's loads of little
Yeah.
cartoon illustrations that have come along over the years. So some people have built up this like, this is who this person is. This is what they look like. I have a very clear mental image of who they are. And then suddenly they get this person who's cast and you're kind of going, no, that's not exactly what I had in my head. It's the same as like when I used to be a big fan of I am a big fan of James Bond. And then when they cast Daniel Craig, I was like, I don't know about this now. I wasn't on board for a long time. And then only like maybe by his third movie, I was like, okay, I'm kind of accepting this new Bond.
Yeah.
But like, it took me a long time because I was like, no, he needs to be this like tall, suave, dark hair.
Pierce Brosnan, like perfect Bond,
like Roger Moore. Pierce Brosnan,
silver-tongued fox.
He had that perfect look, like that kind of. But so again, it's just once you have a pre-existing idea of how somebody should look, it's very difficult to look at somebody else's vision and just take it on board straight away. And I don't blame people online for saying I don't like the look of him because it's their right to say like
absolutely. And like they can have their opinion, and if you don't like him, you don't like him, but you shouldn't say the character is wrong or he's depicted wrong. Not. And like, to bring it back again, another thing the Tolkien professor said is, it might be controversial, but Viggo Mortensen will never be Aragorn for him. He was like, I grew up reading the books, and when I saw him on screen, he said the first time I saw him with the hood and everything, he was like, that's cool. But when he took it off, he was like, he felt skinnier. He wasn't broad enough. He wasn't tall enough. He imagined him as a big, strong man and not like speaking like quietly. He was supposed to be very like dominant in his voice and like, yeah, and I totally get that.
Assured of who he was, and being like, I am the king of Gondor.
But he completely got over that, and like, I think that's what we're saying to you guys: get over it. But actually, more news that came out this week. Speaking of Viggo as Aragorn, Viggo's done some press releases recently he's done interviews for GQ magazine. He was asked, would he consider returning to play Aragorn for the hunt for Gollum? And I have a quote here from Viggo saying, "Sure, I don't know exactly what the story is. I haven't heard. Maybe I'll hear about it eventually. I like playing that character. I learned a lot playing the character. I enjoyed it a lot. I would only do it if it was right in terms of, the age I am now and so forth. I would only do it if I was right for the character. It would be silly to do it otherwise." He also mentioned that he doesn't know how it would really work, but Peter Jackson, his team, and Andy Serkis are really creative and problem-solving type people, and he fully trusts them. So I thought that was great. It was completely unnecessary for him to say anything.
Return of the King.
Yes, Return of the King. But also, in that interview, he's 65 years old, Viggo Mortensen, and his face looked as young as ever. Like, he's got silver hair, but he just looks brilliant. And we've talked about it before in the Hunt for Gollum, in our episode, the podcast episode. You were very strongly advocating that Viggo returns.
Oh yeah.
I think at the time I was kind of like, I don't know, but like, he does look very young.
I'm all for it. I mean, I would have no problem at all with them casting him as the main. Like, a lot of people have said other things like, okay, if he was the narrator of the story, again, that'd be a really cool way to just kind of have a little sort of tip of the cap and have him brought back in. I'd like that as well. I like the sound of Viggo's voice. He's got,
I love it.
He's got very smooth, dulcet tones. So that'd be a good choice as well. Or if they showed him being like an old Aragorn at the beginning, and he's telling the story, and then there's a flashback to the beginning of the story, and it's a younger cast. If they found some way to like just weave him into the story, I'd be very happy. But if they just went as far as to just cast him as Aragorn for the entire movie again, I'd be like, yeah, do it. I would have absolutely no problem with that at all. I would love it. I think that
as is, or would you de-age a little bit? Or
I mean, if they could just do little touches of de-aging that wouldn't affect, like, do you remember
like Hayden Christensen in the most recent Star Wars things?
No, even that was too much. I mean,
The
remember,
Ahsoka one. I thought the Ahsoka one was brilliant. Maybe
it's a bit better. The first one, the
Obi-Wan
Obi-Wan one, it was very clearly there was something going on with his face. But I think that they could nearly do everything that they need to do with just makeup and like just make him, because like, you know, he's got the wig, so that's going to be the same as it was before. His face isn't that old. Like, he had wrinkles in The Lord of the Rings. Give him a dark beard that covers up a lot of his face, and then a bit of makeup, and like he looks good anyway.
I mean,
he's
they
still in shape.
need to screen him first before they make the decision. I think they could be having the same conversations in the studios right now. And if I was Peter Jackson, I'd nearly be like, Viggo, can you come in here and we'll put some costumes on you and we'll just.
But not even that. I think like if there's scenes of him just sitting around and talking, like that's fine. But it's maybe like more the action scenes that he might not be able to move the same way. But like, as in, can they get a stunt double to like, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Of course they can. But I'm saying, can they get like certain scenes where they want him to? Because you know the way also Viggo, he didn't want to use stunt doubles a lot for Lord of the Rings. He just did all, like, he was apparently like amazing with the sword in his hand, and. So I think he would probably himself want to be in lots of like sword fights or different. I don't know if they were shooting any sort of little action sequences like that. I'm sure he'd want to be involved. So if he still has the agility and the ability to do that, I'm sure that would be cool as well to know and to be able to. They should test that as well. I just think I'd love to see him back in that role, and it would make perfect sense. And again, we know Aragorn is 87 years of age in the time of the Lord of the Rings. This is before that, obviously, but he'd still be in his mid 70s, maybe early 80s at this point. Like, we don't know.
Yeah, they could do a whole thing similar to the Hobbit movies where they had old Ian Holm talking about like, my dear Frodo, did I ever tell you about my adventures? And he could even be talking to his son, which would be quite cool. And he could just say like, you know, long time ago, there was the hunt for Gollum, or I was hunting Gollum, and then blah 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 goes into it. Or it could be like, you know, The Princess Bride, where it keeps like switching back.
Yeah.
So he could be
like
there, like
the story.
He could be like sitting there reading a little book to his son, and it keeps switching back to him. And he already has the cool grey locks that they showed in Peter Jackson's Return of the King, where he looks all grey. So I think, I don't know how they'll do it.
Do you know
cool.
I can't remember which Marvel movie it was. It was probably one of the Avengers. It could have been Captain America: Civil War. There was a scene where Tony Stark, played by Robert Downey Jr., was showing some new technology.
Yes, yeah.
And it's like a scene of him as a young guy with his parents. It was like the scene he was like, this is what happened just before this is the last time I saw my parents alive, or something like that. And it showed him, and he's like a teenager in it, or he's like in his early 20s or something like that. And I thought that was I don't know. I was like, that was a very impressive use of de-aging. He looked good.
That's a long time ago now.
That's a long time ago. And also, they de-aged him from a 50-year-old man to like a 21-year-old or something. Like, they used it a lot, like to de-age him a lot. I think just if they have a technology and they need to use it to kind of just make his face, I don't know, slightly thinner or something. If they have the technology that they're able to use, fine. And like, just maybe have a little test run of that and see how it goes. But as I said before, I think they don't even need that. He's very youthful anyway. And then, as I said, a little bit of makeup is all he needs. And, you know, we know that Jackson and co, they're very big fans of just kind of like, you know, prosthetics or kind of like natural things.
But also, like Viggo said, that they're problem solvers. And if we saw anything in,
he said that
especially the Lord of the Rings movies, like Peter Jackson found, like, he had all these problems. Like, you're going to have small little hobbits interacting with a tall wizard. Like, how are we going to solve that problem? And like, he came up with so many different things we see.
Like the choice to cast John Rhys Davies, the tallest member of the cast, as a dwarf, and be like, we'll just shoot all his scenes with the hobbits, and he's towering over them, and then we'll just shrink them all down, and then they're like, he's an in between the hobbits and the men.
Peter Jackson's
genius.
He's not a lazy man. Like, he's going to actually sit down and think. He's not going to be like, we do it all in post. He'll actually sit down and think about like, how can I use Viggo Mortensen to the best of my abilities in this? Like, maybe there'll be a lot of helicopter scenes of chasing, and that won't be Viggo, but there'll be a lot of like up close, I don't know, face shots, you know, and that'll obviously be Viggo with like a little.
I don't think it'd be very realistic if there was helicopters in Lord of the Rings.
But I also wanted to mention as well, in I think it was actually a separate a separate interview, or maybe it was the same one. He was also asked about. So, by the way, he was doing press conference, or he was doing promotional content for his up and coming movie, which is called The Dead Don't Hurt, which is a Western themed movie, and it's actually releasing this week. And Viggo Mortensen, he writes, directs, and stars in this movie. But the interviewer, he was obviously a keen-eyed person. He said he asked about a particular fantasy scene in that movie that displays a horse and a knight, and what he thought looked like the sword of Andúril. And he asked how this all came about. And so I will quote here what Viggo Mortensen had said. He said, "So I did ask Peter Jackson if he'd be all right with it. And he said, 'Well, is it very important in the story?' I said, 'No, it's not actually. You hardly notice it, but somebody will, probably.' He said it was okay with him, but I should ask the movie company. So I contacted them and they were fine with it. They realized it wasn't essential. It wasn't going to draw a lot of attention to itself. And they were very nice about it. And they gave us permission. That's why we did it. Just because it seemed right. It was kind of a last minute accident." So I think that's really cool. Like, Viggo Mortensen obviously directing, starring and writing this movie. And he was like, all right, there's some scene where I need like a horse and a knight and a sword.
He needed a sword prop, and he was like,
I got this at home.
I've got one lying around, and it's the perfect one.
He's like, I
can't find a better sword.
Yeah, and it's not supposed to be, prevalent in the movie at all. It's just supposed to be there in the background. But obviously, this guy picked up on it, or maybe he was told to pick up on it. But
I think it's clever from Viggo being like, I'll get all the Lord of the Rings nerds watching my movie.
Oh, I'm going to watch it. I was going to watch it anyways.
Yeah,
but
same
I'm
as.
definitely going to watch it and look out for that scene.
Understood.
But yeah, that's all I have to note on both these big news drops that happened this week. So obviously the big one being Tom Bombadil, but also there was a nice little interview with Viggo Mortensen on his new movie, which I would advise everyone go see this week because I'm going to do it.
Always good to hear from Viggo.
Always good to hear from him. But yeah, that's all I have to say on that. Anything else you'd like to add, Johnny?
No, not really. I think we've covered everything, and but it's exciting. It just seems like
exciting news.
Seems like just things are falling into place, and we're just getting like more. I don't know. As the summer is going on now, we're just getting more and more little nuggets of information for different things.
So many. We've
got like obviously the new season of Rings of Power is going to be coming out. We've got that to look forward to with Tom Bombadil. Then like Christmas is going to be coming along, and we're going to get the War of the Rohirrim.
Yeah.
And just and then as you said, this week coming now, we're going to be able to watch another film starring Viggo Mortensen. So and my goodness, can you imagine if Viggo did come back as the king and
the Hunt for Gollum
and the role of Aragorn again?
Ian McKellen as well. I hope you join him. That'd be great.
Oh, I'm going to explode with happiness.
So in Tom Bombadil fashion, I'll wrap it up here. So here the podcast comes to an end. I hope you all enjoyed. I'm sure the news of Tom Bombadil will have some of you annoyed, but nevertheless, if you love Tom or find yourself a hating, I'm sure you'll find it in your heart to leave a like and a rating. Please listen closely in weeks to come. We'll have more episodes dropping. New weekly Lord of the Rings content, and this time we ain't stopping. So like and subscribe to the Council of Elrond, and please don't be an outcast. And join us mellons in the world's #1 Lord of the Rings podcast.
Tom Bombadil.
See you next week, guys.